Okay, in this video I will be demonstrating how to prepare your appropriate image for laser engraving for the LED light stand. First things first, I'm in Schoology. Please check the updates. I will have posted the activity instructions for today. And then you're going to jump over to Materials, and you're going to be finding instructions inside the LED light stand project folder. So I want you to go ahead and have this activity open right here. We'll get to the Google Doc eventually, but it's the instructions that I want you to have open so you can follow along. I'm going to go ahead now and not open this Google Doc yet. This comes later. Let's start with instructions for preparing your appropriate image. Okay, so if you were here a few weeks ago, we completed steps 1 through 5 in your project report, which means you should have located at least 4 images. Those should have been saved to your LED light stand folder. And now we're going to select one of those images and edit it and insert it into My Google Doc. Now, if you didn't do this activity with us, you need to start here where it says before you begin, create this folder, complete steps 1 through 5, and then start here with step 6, which is where I'm going to start right now. So here we go. We're not using CAD laptops, but if you were, you would open up your LED light stand folder, right-click on an image you want to edit, and you would have the option to open with either Paint or Photos app on a Windows computer to crop, erase, and convert images. So since we're doing this on a Chromebook, we're going to jump right here. We're going to actually use an online photo editor. And if you have a background that you'd like to attempt to remove, you can remove it with removebg.com. And there's also a link right here. This is something I'm not going to discuss. This is very self-explanatory if you want to go down that road to remove a background. So let me go ahead and show you how this online photo app works. So I'm going to click on the link, Photo P. I'm going to open this up. Once again, I'm going to keep my instructions open. And let's start right here with Open from Computer. Now, when I go here, we of course have already saved a series of images in our LED light stand folder located in our Engineering L2. Let me first start with this example because I know there's a few kids who might have an image they really like to use, but it ends with .webp. This would not work in a Google Doc until you convert it. So let me first start with how to convert an image if this applies to you. So I'm going to select this image. I'm going to open it. And before I do any type of editing, I'm going to convert this, or better yet, save it as a JPEG. So with the image open, I go to File, Export As, and I'm going to select JPEG, which is a very universal image format. Now, once you get to this point here, I'm just going to select Save. Do not change any of these settings. Just select Save. So if we look in the upper right-hand corner, we're using Chrome. That's the downloads icon. You're going to see that this image called bunny.jpg has now been saved. Do not open it. Instead, let's go to Show in Folder. Let's click on this icon. So what I want to do before I start editing this image that's now converted is place the image in my LED light stand folder with the other images that I've also downloaded and saved a few weeks ago. So I'm going to right click. Of course you can copy. I'm just going to cut so that I can remove it from my downloads folder. I'm going to go back to LED light stand. And here I just do a Control V. And you'll now see that there are 2 images. One is a .wbp. I'm not going to use that image. I would use the .jpg. Okay, you can see I have a lot of different images to work with here. So I'm going to go ahead and just return back to Photo P. And I'm just going to start with a different image. I'm going to open from Computer the image I want to use for this project. So let's first talk about cropping and possibly erasing anything from the image that you do not want in your final. I'm going to go ahead and find an image that definitely needs to be cropped And editing, I may or may not have to do any erasing with this image. So let's go ahead and jump over here to this image. You can see it's a .jpg, but you can also use other formats like PNGs, TIFFs, PICs. Those should all work just fine. So I'm going to open this image. And let's keep in mind that we had an image that it was of good quality, at least 300 by 300 resolution. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. So if you look over here on the left, there are a lot of different features to choose from. It can become a little overwhelming. So we're just going to talk about zooming for right now. I'm going to click on the zoom tool, and there's a plus and a minus. So I'm just going to zoom in just so I can get a better view of the image. Okay, let's begin with cropping. Cropping is the first thing I would like you to do. So I'm going to click on the crop tool. And this is if you have any excess white area around the image. Let's first crop the image. So I'm going to grab a corner. Of course, I'm going to be very mindful not to clip off the image. I'm going to get relatively close or tight, but of course not clip off the image. And I like to grab corners because I can just do this in 2 steps rather than grabbing the sides. Okay, very good. Done. All right, so now that I actually have that in place, you can see there's a little check mark right here. I'll select it, confirm it, that has now been cropped. Now, erasing is going to be for a student who might see some other text, like possibly a copyright or a trademark. If you have watermarks, you need to first attempt to use the Remove BG option. And if you're not successful there, I would just use a different image. Don't waste your time on trying to get rid of watermarks. It's probably better just to use a different image. But if you do have some other pixels or something that needs to be cleaned up, let's talk about the eraser tool. So if you look once again over here on the left, this is the eraser icon. Let me click on that. And here's a few things you want to keep in mind. Right now, the size of the eraser is relatively small, which is good. But if you want to increase the size, I'll jump here. You can increase the size. And of course, every time I make this larger, I get a much bigger eraser. I'm going to back that down back to about 15 where I was before. That's a good size for this image. So if you're trying to get rid of something within the image itself to clean it up before we move on to the next step, then now's the time to do it. I'm going to do something, and of course, I'm going to undo it. But if for any reason I needed to get rid of something on the image, one thing you'll first find, I'm going to click and drag. You do get this checkered background, but keep in mind that's just going to be clear or white on the final. So if I'm just using this to clean something up off the image that I no longer want, or possibly any stray pixels, use the eraser tool. Okay, so you can change the size of the brush if needed to get rid of what you don't want from the image. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and Control Z and just bring my image back to its original format. All right, most importantly, it's been cropped, and then I've used any means of erasing with the eraser tool. So here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and select File, Save. Okay, save changes to germanshepherd.jpg. I'm going to hit Save Changes. Now, I want you just to kind of take a look at what should have happened had I saved it. Let me go back to my folder. Okay, and I want you to pay close attention that this image is now different from what I started with because I saved it. So when you are finished using this app, you can't just move on. It doesn't save. You have to finish by hitting save. And then, of course, it's taking the original image and updating it, and you should now see it's different than before. Okay, so make sure that's all in place before you move on. All right, speaking of moving on, let's go ahead and move on. So let me jump back here. I can close this for now. And let's now jump back to my instructions. So I just completed steps 6 and 7. Now let's talk about inserting your appropriate image into the laser engraved design Google Doc that I created. Let me be clear, do not use just a Google Doc. It's the one I've created for this activity. So it tells us in Schoology to open the LED light stand project folder, and we're going to click on the Google Doc called _laser engraved design. When you do this, it'll rename the file for you. And I want you to pay attention to this set of instructions. We're going to make sure a few things are checked under view. show print layout, show ruler, and show outline. So here we go. Let's jump back here. These were the instructions, and this is now the Google Doc. So I'm going to click on it. One of the first things I like to do is zoom in. I'm going to crank this up to either 150 or 200. Okay, just go big. Make sure you have a nice big workspace. Now, your doc will be renamed. I'm only doing this next step because I do not want to mess with the original. So you do not have to do this next step. This is only for my demonstration purposes. Do not rename the file. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to rename my file so that it's ready for the next step. All right, so let me go ahead and crank this back to about 150 to 200%. You can go bigger if you like. And let's talk about putting in your image. You'll notice that the size of this square is the size of the acrylic, the plastic that we're laser engraving on. It is from here to here 3 inches, and from here to here 3 inches. So the instructions are basically telling me to go ahead and insert the image, and we're then going to be selecting a few other options to make sure it's in front or behind and that we can move it around freely. But before we do that, let's look under the View menu and make sure these 1, 2, 3 things are checked. So if I go to View, you'll notice that I have selected Show Print Layout, Show Ruler. Let's go back to the instructions, Show Print Layout, Show Ruler, and Show Outline. I'm not seeing it under my view, but if you see it under yours, make sure that is also selected. I have noticed it sometimes comes up and sometimes it doesn't. So most importantly, we have these 2 of the 3 selected, and you might have to select a third if it's visible. Alrighty, so here we go. Let's go to Insert, Image, and I'm going to select Upload from Computer. I know some of you might be able to use that option. I'm just going to use Upload from Computer. And of course, I need to work my way back to this folder, so I can go to my Google Drive, My Drive, Engineering L2 LED Light Stand. Here's my German Shepherd. Let me click on it and select Open. Now, very important. When you click on an image like this, you really can't do much. Of course, you can resize it, but you can't move it. So like the instructions state, we're going to be looking for something that looks like this. And you have the choice of doing in front or behind, but we are going to make sure Fixed Position on Page is selected. That gives you the freedom to move the image around. So take a look right here. Image is selected. Okay, so select the image. You can either have the image in front or behind. For right now, I'm just going to say in front. That's fine. And this is important. Do not have this option selected. Fixed Position on Page allows you to freely move the image, as you'll see in a moment, anywhere you want on the screen. Now, to keep things proportional, always grab a corner. Don't grab an edge. It becomes unproportional. Grab a corner. Okay, now this is why I wanted you to crop, so that as you start to manipulate the image, you're not having any dead white space. So just make sure, as it says in my instructions, resize an image so it takes up the entire workspace. Go big. Go as big as you can without obviously getting too close to the edge and clipping off the image. You can add text, you can add shapes, you can add other images. It's optional, but for right now, let's just work with what we got. So first things first, I can make this a little bit larger. And as long as I'm leaving a little bit of white space between the image and the edge, the border, I should be good. Now, there's a little pro tip to move things very carefully. If you hold down your Shift key and use your arrow keys, as I'm doing, left, right, up, down, you can make very, very subtle movements rather than clicking and dragging with your mouse or your touchpad. So I'm going to kind of get this centered, and that there looks pretty darn awesome. Okay, so don't get too close to the edge. That's plenty of space there. I wouldn't get any closer. I wouldn't get any closer. And we could call this done. We could call this good, and we can move on to the next step. Now, if this is completed, you would then create what's called a PDF, and we'd convert the image to a JPEG. So let me show you something else that can also be done if this is of interest to you. So we could call this completed, let me go ahead and make a copy. And I'm going to call this one, for my next demonstration, I'm going to call this one inverse. In the event you want to do an inverse of an image. Okay, now this doesn't work with every image, so I just want you to be very, very mindful of what I'm going to show you next. So let me start once again with this just template. Okay, let me zoom in. All right, and let me go ahead and bring in an image. Insert image, upload. And let me go ahead and grab something like the panther. This one might actually work out really, really well. Okay, let me hit open. Okay, so once again, I select the image. This one's already been cropped. And I'm going to go ahead and select in front of text and fix position with page. Okay, now I want you to take a look at what I'm going to do next. I'm going to resize it. And what I'm going to do is actually make an inverse of this image. And you may be aware of that you can do this in Google Docs. Let me just double click on the image. Oops, let me select the image. And let me go to image options. So do not double click, just select it, go to image options. And I want you to look over here on the far right. There's something called recolor. You can select under recolor, if you look down here, this is basically an inverse of this. So you can try this with an image, and sometimes it looks good, sometimes it does not. So let me just do inverse, and boom. Okay, cool. So let's keep something in mind. What's black gets engraved, what's white will remain clear. So if you had an image that was inversed, the first thing I'm going to do is first get the image resized, put it where I want it, leave a little bit of space around the edges, but now comes a step that's unique with this style of image. I need to insert a black background to fill in this gap here. So here we go. Insert drawing, new, and I'm going to simply select a shape like a square. It does not matter how big, how small, square or rectangle. Just make that shape, square or rectangle. Two things need to happen here. Fillet black and border black. Okay, don't worry about the size. We'll fix that in a minute. So I'm going to hit save and close. Now, I'm going to have to do a little fancy footwork here. I'm going to move this image off to the side for just a moment. Okay, there it is. It's going to move it off to the side. All right, let's go back to this. So two things need to happen with this image, or this square or rectangle. Okay, number one, it has to be behind, and it has to once again be fixed position. Okay, what I typically do is I have this go up and over just outside my workspace, so it's kind of bleeding over the edge. I'm going to grab this corner, I'm going to go just over the edge, I'm going to grab this edge. So basically I have a square that's just bigger than the document itself. So it basically makes a complete fill. Now let's grab, you can see it's just over here, it's hidden, but I know it's sitting over here. Let's now go back to this image and let's put it back. And now you'll see what we just created. All right, look at that. So you can see that edge is now filled in with black. And I now have an image that looks much better. But once again, go big, but just be careful not to get clipped off at the edge, and try to keep it proportional if you need to keep it proportional. Okay. If you wanted to add text, the text would have to be white on an image like this. And if you wanted to add text here, the image or the text would have to be black here. So let me just finish off with some text. So just keep in mind, doesn't matter which example I'm using. So since I'm going to add some text, I'm going to go ahead and make my image a little bit smaller and put a text box down here. Okay, so let's put some text if you're interested. So I'm going to go to Insert, Drawing, New, and this time I'm going to grab the text tool. Okay, remember, since the image, it has a white background, I'm going to make the text black. If it was a black background, I'd have white text. So I'm just going to click and drag and make a text box, and I'll just type in something like German Shepherd, and I'm probably misspelling that. Is that right? Goodness gracious. I'm not an English teacher, kids. I think that's right. So let me go ahead and just highlight that and I have a few things I can do here. I can change the font, of course. If you want to change the font, change the font, change the font size. You'll notice in a minute you can change that. I'll even go so far sometimes of just putting this in the center. And then I just kind of like to clean up my text box. I don't need a monster text box. I'm going to kind of bring these edges in so things are as they should be. Okay, that should look pretty good. Now, not going to worry too much about the size, and you'll see in a minute why. I can make it bigger. But if this was going in a black background, change the text color. Change the text color if it's a black background to white. White if it's a black background. Now, I'm going to put it back to black since I have a white background, and I'm going to hit save and close. Hopefully I spelled that right. Okay, so first things first, where did it go? Simple. It's probably behind the image. So let's move that out of the way. Let's grab the text box and let's do what we've done already a few times. This time I can do in front or behind. You make the call. Just do in front. And once again, fix position on page. All right, let me just move this down so I can work with it. Let me move this back up so I can work with it. There it is. And like I said earlier, didn't have to pay too much attention to size because here I can go big. Okay, I can go big. And like anything, text is an image. Be careful how close you get to the edge. But like I said before, go big. Try to go as big as you can. This piece of acrylic is only 3 inches by 3 inches. It's smaller than you think. So try to go as big as you can with your image so we can really see it when it's laser engraved. Okay, once again, little pro tip, hold down your shift key, use your arrow tools, and you can do subtle little movements with your image, or in this case, my text. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with this. This looks pretty great. So I'm going to stop right here. So let's keep something in mind. I showed you this demo. Make sure that you would have white text if you were to add text to something like this. And now I've showed you this demo. All right, so let's move on to the last and final step here. We just covered basically up to step 10, and now we're going to create a PDF. Here it comes. And then convert the PDF to a JPEG. And then you and I will be completing this last step together in class, but the last thing you will do is make sure that this image is back in your folder that we're going to convert. Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to save step 14 when I return, but you're going to stop here at step 13. So let me do 11, 12, and 13. Let's start with creating a PDF document. So we're going to go to File, Download, and select PDF. So once again, you're happy with your image. You made adjustments, changes, maybe added additional images if they'll fit. Everything is black and white, no grayscale, no other color. Here we go. Let me change my file just for demonstration purpose. Just call this one Mark Bolt, okay? Because more than likely your name is there too. All right, File, Download, PDF. Now it's going to download. Don't open it. Don't touch it. We know it's sitting in our downloads folder. Leave it alone. Okay? Let's go to our next set of instructions. Now that we have created a PDF and it's in our downloads folder, we're now going to open up a website which converts it to a JPEG. So we're going to click here. This is the link you want to click on. Here we go. Choose Files. So when you click on this drop-down arrow, we're going to select From Device. From Device. Okay, remember, we went ahead and created a PDF file that's sitting in your Downloads folder. So we're going to go to Downloads, and you should see a PDF file. Let's click on it and select Open. All right, give it a moment. It's going to convert it from a PDF back to a JPEG. No other option here because we're using the free version, so hit convert. All right, and our last step here is to hit download. Okay, don't open the file. Let me close this window. I repeat, don't open the file. Let me come back here. Don't open the file that was just downloaded. Instead, go back to Show in Folder. All right, awesome. So here we go. We are going to put this file in your LED light stand folder. So it's sitting here, and we'll be wrapping up the last step as a class. So I'm just going to right click, and I'm going to select Cut, and I want to place this in my LED light stand folder, and I'm going to hit Control V, or you can right click and paste. All right, now let's be very clear in the future when I return which is the file we want. It's always going to be a file that has this underscore laser engraved design underscore 3x3 JPG. This is a file that we will, as a class, work with next time. And that instruction that I'm referring to is step number 14. We will do this as a group upon my return. All right, kids, give it a go. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.